Hello and welcome to the CCS Exam Prep Review. The CCS exam, for me, from a personal perspective, was one of the more challenging exams that I've taken. When I personally took the CCSP exam, I had not worked in an inpatient setting. This was 2006, and I had just started working for a consulting company that said, we're going to be doing audits, inpatient hospital, outpatient hospital, coding for the physician, and we need you to get ready. So I had taken the CCSP in 2004, and that was after, on the job coding. And so I said, okay, here I go. So, one of the things that I think was critical for me, I didn't take a review course. Um, I literally sat down with the guidelines. Now, in all fairness, I had been teaching coding at that point almost 10 years. I started in 97, and so I took the CCS in 2006. So I had somewhat of an advantage because I really understood how valuable the coding guidelines were. I also understood the importance of knowing the manuals. I realized that I had to know those manuals. Now, when I took the CCS exam in 2006, part of it was on the computer, and the other part, the medical records, were in a booklet. The medical records portion, those records seemed to be pretty long to me. And I left out of there like, whoa, but I passed. And so in this review, we're going to talk about some strategies to help you successfully navigate the exam. Hands down, you want to make sure that you have the content outline, which includes information about the 4 domains, which is what we are going to be going over. So it doesn't matter which exam you are going to be taking, mindset is critical. If you are a person that believes that you should be continuously learning, you have one aspect of a growth mindset. The very first skill that you need to do in terms of preparing for the CCS exam is setting clear goals. In your CCS Exam Prep book, which is published by AHEMA, and that's one reference that you definitely need to have, they talk about a study plan. They talk about goals. One of the things that you have to realize is that just like we each have our own fingerprint, we each have a strategy when it comes to studying and passing national exams. Sometimes individuals will say, well, I've done this for a while, so I should be able to ace that exam, no problem, right? Easy peasy. But the thing is, you still have to study and not take anything for granted. So you need to have a study plan. I personally believe that you got to get that test scheduled and then set goals and a study plan. Now, you probably are thinking, how come I just can't how come I just can't study and then figure out what day I'm going to take the test? I think it's important to get the test scheduled and then force yourself to attack your study strategy. I'm not going to go into study plan because that's covered in the AHEMA CCS Exam Prep book. Number 3, you have to understand the exam structure. And oftentimes I read in blogs, study groups that I am a member of on like Facebook, and I oftentimes see questions where individuals are saying, well, how many questions are on the exam? What's the format of the exam? That right there tells me that an individual has not done their due diligence in understanding what's ahead of them. So here's a call to action for you. Number 1, spend some time on the AHEMA's website. Look at everything that you can get your hands on related to the CCS exam. But on top of that, you want to review their overall exam structure, their overall exam criteria. For example, all AHEMA exams have what is known as cognitive skills: recall, analysis, and application. It's important for you to understand what that means and how to execute it. Additionally, another question that I hear often: can I write in my manual? What do I bring to the exam? Again, information that's covered on AHEMA's page. Let me just give you some friendly advice as to why you don't want to post questions like that in an open forum. If an employer sees that you're asking that type of question regarding resources that are on the website, that sends up like a red flag, if you will. And you may be wondering why. No question is a dumb question, right? But in the world of coding, there's a lot of references that we use that are on Medicare's website, on the Office of Inspector General's website. And if you are not taking the time to look up information about an exam that you're going to be taking on the website that has the information, the employer starts to wonder if in a workplace setting, will they have to tell you everywhere to go. In AHEMA's review guide at the very end, there's actually let's see, what do they call it? Like a list of references. You, as a coding specialist, have to get used to using reliable resources, reliable references. So that takes me to point number 4. So in different versions of AHEMA review guide over the years, they've talked about what resources you need for the CCS exam. Hands down, you need to have the content outline that lists the 4 domains and the tasks, right? But then the content outline is the floor of what you need to know and not the ceiling. So other things that you need, my opinion: CPT assistant, coding clinic from AHA. Now you probably are wondering, well, why do I need that? I can't take it with me into the exam. Well, it's not about what you can take physically with you into the exam. It's about the fact that if you look at some of the questions in your review guide, they will make reference to a CPT assistant or make reference to a coding clinic. And so you have to have that resource so that you can review it. Now, let me just pause for station identification. You cannot pass this exam by memorizing everything. Memorizing questions from the review guide, memorizing questions that you've seen on some type of blog. You've got to learn the information. Keep in mind that the exam is one day of your life as a CCS. What about the time after that when you're on the job, when you're applying for the job? You need to take this opportunity to prepare for that moment. So, outside of CPT assistant, coding clinic, you need to have a book that'll give you a coding workout. Woohoo! What do I mean by that? You need a book that has lots of multiple choice scenarios. One of my favorite books is the AHIMA Clinical Coding Workout book. Love, love, love that book because it has basic, intermediate, and advanced scenarios. No examination review process is complete without me talking about how to attack the guidelines. I've often heard individuals say, it's too many guidelines. I'm not going to ever learn all of them. No one's asking you to memorize them, but there are things you can do to help yourself learn them. This is my 3-step process. Number 1, you must read them at least 3 times. The first time you read them, it's about building awareness of them, okay? ICD-10-CM, for example, it's kind of long, right? You got to break that up into chunks to review it. Step 2 is go back and read them again, but this time read for understanding. So the first time, it's the knowledge, it's the awareness that there are the guidelines for different things, right? Second time, you're going back to read them to make sure that you understand each guideline. Any guideline that you don't understand, you've got to do further research. Oftentimes, I think individuals who are studying for an exam think, well, I will just go through an exam prep book. I will keep going over the questions until I get them together, get them correct, and then I'm all good for the exam. Again, the exam is just one day of your life. So it's so very important that you go beyond that. Step number 3 is application. Once you build awareness, the knowledge that the guidelines exist, then you understand them. Then you can apply them. Now, the application process is twofold. You got to have some scenarios to code so that you can apply the concepts and do the things that I just went over, right? Someone asked me recently, well, you mentioned CPT assistant, you mentioned coding clinic, right? You mentioning that we need to have access to an encoder program. Well, AHIMA happens to have a package that covers the clinical coding workout book, along with a 1-year, I think it's a 1-year, double check for yourself, subscription to 3M. That's golden because in 3M, you can get access to Coding Clinic, you can get access to CPT Assistant, you can get access to APC Finder, DRG Finder, which are all the things that you need that I was just talking about. And, they have this bundle, again, check it out, in their product store, and that can help you. Another resource, and I got lots of them, right? Another resource is that you need to make sure that you understand MSDRGs. Well, that information is on the CMS website. They update the version of the DRG annually. They update APC annually. Code books are updated annually. All right, I think I've covered that enough. I'm going to move on to my next step. Practice on a regular basis. When you're studying for an exam like this, you got to cut out all the extra things in your life. It's important to practice some self-care, manage your stress. That's my number 7. But you have to have a regular cadence that you follow from a study perspective. There are study groups and forums out there. There's one-on-one coaching, extensive review courses that you can take. But sometimes people rely on those resources and not start with the number 1 resource, which is you. You can go and sign up for an exam prep course and realize that there are so many different things that you need to do to even be ready for the review, which is why I'm covering this today. You want to make sure you stay positive. One of the negative things I think about study groups and forums is that sometimes you will see where people will say, I took the exam, I didn't pass. And my number 1 question is to that person, tell me all the things in complete detail of what you did prior to the exam. And oftentimes I found that individuals will say, well, I got all A's in my class, so I knew that I was going to pass the exam. Not. Review and revise. You have a schedule, right? We talked about number 1 and 2, setting a schedule, developing a study plan. You will need to tweak that as you go along. One of the things I always recommend individuals do at the beginning of their study process is take a mock exam. The purpose of the mock exam is for you to give yourself a baseline of where you are. There's this song that says, I started from the bottom, now I'm here. You have to know for yourself where you are before you start your study process. You have to identify what areas do I realize, I don't really know that area. But let me just caution you. Don't just focus on that one area and neglect the others. Stay updated. Remember I talked about the AHEMA website and where the CCS exam content is? You must stay updated with regards to what changes are taking place with the exam. The exam is generally updated every May. What coding manuals will you be required to bring when you take your exam? Remember I talked about setting that exam date and then start to study? You got to hold yourself accountable. You got to stay away from the negative people. You have to believe in you. You have the tools that you need to be successful, but you should be learning faster than you're growing. If you don't know the 3 coding manuals for this test, and I'm not talking about memorizing. I have to be very clear. I'm not talking about memorizing. I'm talking about that you spent some time with the table of contents and you've taken your manual for a test drive. In the manuals, they have guidelines, right? Have you reviewed those guidelines? And please don't get in the habit of you're just going to highlight everything that you read. That's confusing on the day of the test. You have to highlight what's important and not highlight the entire book. All right, here's my last part, and I'm done with this segment. There is a YouTube video called CPT Highlighting and Bubbling. Definitely recommend that you get that resource. All right. Well, that's all. Thank you so much.